Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, everyone? Frogman Friday. Let's do this here. Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today. Today, our badass guest is Travis Allison, aka Diesel. He served 13 years as a Navy FA-18 fighter pilot and Top Gun graduate, exiting service as a lieutenant commander. He's a proud owner of Vamos Auto, founded in 2024, located both in Arlington and Houston, Texas. You can follow Vamos Auto on Facebook and Instagram. And to learn more about Vamos Auto, go check out vamosauto.us. Fast note, Naval Aviators and Navy SEALs go through roughly the same amount of training time-wise. But when we graduate, SEALs get issued an M4 and a pistol, and pilots get issued a $100 million plane. So it shows you who can do more with less. Diesel, welcome to the show.
You're funny, man. Yeah, I don't know if it's they trust us more, or maybe we just have to have more fancy equipment because they don't trust us, right? I appreciate the intro, as always, Birdman, and I appreciate your friendship, man. I think you were probably the first vet I met when I got out of the service in Dallas, you know, like anyone, when they're making that transition, it can be a touch and go, to use my aviation terms. Getting to meet you and just helping me with the transition was a huge help. So I appreciate that, Birdman, as usual. And, we'll be lifelong brothers forever. So thank you for that.
Yeah, brother. There's no doubt. Let's touch on that for a second. So when we met, I was invited to this event, and I show up and there's a bunch of older guys and there's Trav, and it's like seeing this Rico Suave looking fighter pilot aviator. And I'm like, I mean, it is like the perfect scenario of seeing Val Kilmer back in first Top Gun and then seeing you. I'm like, these guys are slick. But when I'm sitting there talking to a bunch of guys, everybody's talking about certain instruments of the plane or doing this type of mission or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, God, everybody's talking about aviation here. And so finally I had to ask, like, are you all you guys aviators? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, why the hell am I here? Like, I have never flown a plane. I am not an aviator. And I'm like, why am I here? And they're like, you're not an aviator? I was like, oh, you know what? I got invited because I've flown a wingsuit a few times. Makes sense to me. We're all in the same boat. So that was hilarious.
They wanted the token special ops guy. You know how it is, right? There I was hanging out with the Navy SEALs. So yeah, look, I mean, I think at the end of the day, what I tell people is, we may never have crossed our paths, in the physical form in the military, but I'm sure we crossed our paths, on the radio somewhere in Afghanistan or Iraq or Somalia, somewhere over one of those deep, dark holes of the earth. But when you come back to the States and you meet a fellow veteran, especially a warfighter, you're instantly connected, and it's like you have been friends forever. So, the warfighter community, as you know, especially the spec ops community, is a very, very small niche group. And the warfighting side of the military is an extremely small niche group. There's only, a small percentage of people that are actually on the front lines fighting the war. And so, we all go through the same, decompression when you get out of the service. And so just having someone to kind of walk alongside you is always a win-win. So, I appreciate that. And, obviously God put us in that room together for a reason. I believe that. And, we've been able to, share our wins and our losses as we go through life together, right? Having kids, all those things. So, yeah, it's been a good journey. I appreciate you having me on this, Birdman, and we're continued to move the needle, whatever we can do in life. I think that the one thing that I realized the most when I got out of the service was just how I needed to sink my teeth into something new, and what that looked like, I didn't know at all. I knew I didn't want to be an airline pilot, and it's nothing against my friends that are airline pilots, and they're great humans, but for me, it just wasn't what God was calling me to do. He wanted me to get back in the business world, and I say get back in the business world. My undergrad was in finance, and I wasn't ROTC or the Naval Academy. I was OCS. So when I was going through undergrad, if it weren't for 9/11, I'll be honest with you, I would have probably never gone into the service. So I would have been, one of those suits sitting in, JP Morgan, pushing PowerPoints and Excel spreadsheets around. But then 9/11 happened and changed my trajectory for the rest of my life. And so, um, you know, the service was a calling at that moment in time. I never looked at it as my entire book, if that makes sense. I looked at it as a few chapters in my book. And so when I left, I said, hey, what are these next chapters going to look like? And I'm sure like, yeah, you did, is when you get out, you're ready to like, you got the arrows, and you're ready to just take on the world. And then the world kind of slaps you in the face. That camaraderie that you have in the military, in these small communities, in the fighter pilot community, Top Gun community, spec op community, it's not there in private sector. And I'm not saying there aren't companies that have that, and by no means am I saying that. But for me, it wasn't something that just I happened to fall into, like these group of steely-eyed killers that got your back, are willing to talk about their losses just as much as their wins, willing to fall on their face, and then pick themselves up, and all those things, and then get in arguments together, but hug it out and go to the grab a beer afterwards, like all those things. I tell this one story because it kind of translates into kind of how I got to Vamos Auto. But when I got out, I had a few people that took me under the wing in a business sense. So I always tell people, when you do leave, try to find a mentor, in the public realm that may have been in the military, may not, but someone older that has walked through the path of where you want to go. And so that may not be something you find instantaneously, but keep searching, right? I think the one thing, I think you can agree with this, Birdman, the military taught me, it didn't matter if you had 4 stars on your shoulders or you were, an E3. Everyone in the warfighting community gets treated the same, right? Yeah. And that's the reason for call signs in the military, and especially in the fighter pilot community, was because when you get in the cockpit, it's no hello Vice Admiral XNXX, it's hey Birdman, hey Diesel. It desensitizes the cockpit, and it makes it you realize, hey, we're all in one fighting machine, right? And so when you get out, one thing I learned through the military was like, I don't care if you're a billionaire, I'm going to go talk to you. You're a human being, right? And what you find out is a lot of these people want to be talked to, just no one wants to talk to them because they're scared to. Right. If that makes sense. But once you're able to break down those walls, these people don't become the top of their profession, most of them, because they just happen to wake up one day and, get handed the keys of the kingdom. There are some like that. There's family generational, but most of them came from, what you did when you started Buds, and in a sense, the grind, right? And when I was going through flight school, when everyone else wanted to go out and, party, and you're like, dang, man, like I want to go out tonight too, but I bet I got a sim tomorrow at 4:30, what do I do? Right. So, it's the grind. It's the ones who can survive the grind. And it's the same in the business world. So I had these 2 mentors that took me under their wing, brought me into this company in Dallas, and really, really well-known guy here, just salt of the earth, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you, I probably shouldn't even have been in in their stratosphere, but was able to start working as an analyst in this company. And I remember going to get a cup of coffee. They had this really awesome cafeteria, and realized I had flown home from my last deployment in 2015. I flew, when I say flew, they were still out. So I flew from the carrier to Qatar, Qatar to Kuwait, Kuwait to DC, DC, Virginia Beach, hook up a U-Haul and go to Dallas. And I'm in the corporate office, 2 months later, right? Terminal leave's over. You're like, oh gosh, I got to make money, all
Yeah.
these things. And so I'm a 36-year-old, 35 and a half, starting over, which was fine, and my group of analysts that I were working with were, 23, 24. So pretty big age difference. The only time I was really using Excel in the Navy was put together a flight schedule. That was about it.
Yeah.
And then, now fast forward here I was, everything was on Excel. But anyways, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is we all go grab some lunch, and they have this place. I just imagine a Starbucks in this cafeteria, but it's not Starbucks. And they have this barista who makes me a cup of coffee, cup of Joe. And I remember taking this sip of this cup of coffee, and I turn around and I'm like, this is the best cup of coffee I've ever had in my life. And, it's coming from drinking motor oil in the military.
Yeah.
And everyone's staring at me like, who is this dude? And one of the guys that was in my little group of analysts was like, man, do you really like that coffee? And I was like, yeah. He was like, it's a little burnt. And I was like, are you serious? And anyways, but ultimately it's all about perspective, right? To me, that was like the best cup of Joe I'd ever had, because someone sat there and, steamed everything. And I mean, you never got that crap on the aircraft carrier. You had your old pen, you got your coffee, you poured it out, it was clumpy, you stirred your, with your pen, you drank. And I never thought any different. I didn't care in the military either, but it was just, that was just the beginning of kind of the metaphor for my transition. That's when I kind of went home and I told my wife, I was like, man, this is going to be a little bumpier than I expected. And then, so that's really kind of how I started getting into the business world. I also learned, even though it was going to be bumpy, that I was going to have to surround myself with people like yourself, Birdman, that I was willing to come to and say, man, like, dude, shit sucks right now. Like, I need you to help recage my brain and make me, realize that, hey, we're all going to get through this together. Right. And so you always were a confidant that I was able to talk to through that. So I appreciate that. And then I started, realizing, hey, I really am starting over. Right. So I may be 36, but I had to go back with the mindset that I was freshly out of college at 22. Right. And so the things I thought I was going to be able to just kind of walk into at 36 wasn't the case. I was going to have to put myself back into the 22-year-old Travis and earn my stripes all over again. Even though, and you get this, and especially your fellow spec op guys, is people want to treat you like you're some, like, I don't know, figurine almost. You're like the token, hey, we've got a spec ops guy with us, or we got a fighter pilot. And I wanted to make sure that people realized that there was more to my life than that. Like, yes, that was what I did for a certain amount of time, and I'm super dang proud of it. And, probably at the end of my time, other than loving Jesus and raising my kids, will probably be the greatest thing I accomplished in my life. But there was something else, if that makes sense, Birdman, that, I had to, start working again. And I had to remember all those things that made you successful, me successful in our communities. I had to get back to those basics, right? No one was just going to hand me the keys to a business and say, oh yeah, here you go, Travis. You went on a couple deployments, Top Gun grad. Here you go. Here's the keys to the kingdom. That wasn't going to happen. And my mentors that were true friends to me said, it isn't going to happen. You're going to have to go back and, get your teeth kicked in.
I
And
remember this. I remember this well. And you know what? One thing that I always thought about during this time period for you was I couldn't dissect in my mind how somebody who could fly at 7.5 Gs could go from that to sitting behind a desk. I just couldn't fathom that. And I mean, I have to be all over the place and I have to be an entrepreneur because I'd probably be fired everywhere I go for HR purposes. But for you, it's
you'd be
like,
fine.
yeah, yeah, right. So, but to see that transition and know, like, I've been there before you, and it isn't easy for any of us because you're very goal oriented. You have incredible ideas, and unfortunately, ideas right out of the gate don't get heard. So you
Yep.
have to bide your time. You have to earn your stripes, like you said, and sometimes you got to grind and shut your mouth, and that it's difficult. So continue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, and I say that sitting here, it's 2024. I left active duty at the end of 2015. All right. So, just for, we're all timeline oriented, right? And I say timeline oriented. If you got behind timeline on a mission, you know this, Birdman, you're effed.
Yeah.
Okay. And same thing in the fighter pilot community. We have a timeline. And once you get behind timeline, it is very, very difficult to get back on it.
Yep.
Right. And so, um, that's my time. I mean, it's taken me 8 years to get to a place where I finally am running my own business, and it wasn't an overnight success. Vamos Auto, and so I grew up in the car business. My family's been in the car business since the late 50s when my grandfather got home from the Korean War. He was a teacher, had a master's degree, and realized he wanted to do something more with his life, and started selling cars in Waxahachie, Texas as a Ford dealer. And same thing, just, stayed with it. And just through time was able to have an opportunity to own part of that Ford dealership in Waxahachie. And then was able to move the dealership to Houston in the 70s off the East Tex Freeway. Uh, and so my grandfather, who's my hero, his name was Mort Hall. So Mortimer Hall, that's an old name, right? Just salt of the earth, give the shirt off his back for you. Was another guy that taught me to fail and be okay with it, right? And to never change your attitude. Like, it's going to be all right, man. So, and you got to fail, right? So he moved it to Houston in the 70s, built it to the nation's number one truck dealer in all Ford in the early 80s. And just was, so my whole family became part of this car business, right? I was born in 1980, way back when, and just grew up going to the car lot. And I just thought my grandfather was larger than life. I mean, he was just like, it was the greatest thing ever, right? And so I grew up in the car lot. My dad made me work, washing cars in the summer. He would take me to the car auctions. I would flip hamburgers, and I just grew up being around it. So to me, it was normal, right? And so my uncle, everyone, my uncles, my aunts, I mean, everyone was in the business, right? And so, like any family business, it has its drama and all those type of things. And then in the 90s, my uncle was able to branch off, do his own thing. Anyways, they sold the dealerships to Auto Nation at one point. Anyways, when I went to college, I just thought, hey, I'm going to graduate and I'll come back. I'll work in the car business, or I'll go work at, like I said, JP Morgan, do something with my finance degree. And then 9/11 happened and my trajectory kind of, completely changed. So I always had an affinity for the car business. I didn't, anyone that was in the car business in the 80s and 90s, or even before that, realizes that it was a bell to bell, 6 day a week type of profession. You got to work early, 7, 8 in the morning, and you didn't come home until 10, 11. So I didn't see my dad a ton, Birdman. I'll be honest with you. I missed a lot. He missed a lot of things. Now, I don't fault him for that. He was trying to provide for the family. And so, but I realized especially when I was in the military, I said, man, I really don't want to get into the car business when I get out. Because I had 2 kids when I was in the military. I wanted to watch them grow up. You get it, right? Like, you want to have some. And so, but my mindset was stuck on this. Hey, that's the car business. Cause the military, I had this big gap where when I left to go in the military, the car business was still this bell to bell type of world. And then when I got out, I just assumed, and that's, what they say about assuming things. That was what the car business still was/is. And there are people that still run their businesses like that. But once I started working in the real world, I started meeting some mentors, I started realizing, especially with technology, websites, I mean, you can log on to vamosauto.us and be underwritten for your entire card process before you even step foot in the dealership. So you'll know right then and there if you're qualified for a vehicle, right? I mean, how great is that, right? Whereas before you had to go, remember when you used to buy a car, you're like, oh man, I don't want to go to the car dealership because as soon as I walk on the lot, someone's going to jump out behind a car and be like, hey, this is me. You want to buy, like that process always was something that I was like, man, I feel like there's got to be a better way to do this, right? Especially and I didn't, invent any new process. I just said, look, I took the things that we learned in the military, which was surround yourself with good people, right? Like the best, and, get out of their way, right? And be there as y'all struggle through the problems together. But good people will figure it out. And so, that's what I've done. My brother, my younger brother's in this business with me. He's a minority owner, and I wouldn't be able to do it without him. But man, he's the muscle behind this, right? He does the day-to-day grind. I'm here, but man, he's the brains. He just knows what he's doing. So I love that part of it. I love being back in this, like, every person that walks through the door here needs a car for some reason, right? And so Vamos Auto, we mainly deal with subprime auto lending. And these are people that, for some reason or the other have bad credit. It doesn't mean that you have to have bad credit to qualify for a loan here. As you know, we do 0% deals. It just depends on your level. But the majority of our people that are walking through the door can't go get qualified through Ford Motor Credit, Chrysler Capital, Santander, all these, bigger names, USAA, they're not getting qualified there. These are construction workers, you name it, right? So, and so, our job is to put them in a car, keep them in the car, and get them to their jobs so they can provide for their family.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that's how we function as an economy, right? Like, I don't know if you've looked, but I mean, yeah, we have a DART system in DFW, but it's not like in Europe where everyone's riding a train to get to and fro. Like, you're not getting from Fort Worth to Dallas on the DART most of the time. Like, you got to have a vehicle, right? And that's anywhere in the United States. So people got to have vehicles to work, right? They got to get to work. And so, our job is to, put them in a car, keep them paying, and that means keep them paying means putting them in a reliable car that they can get to and from work. So really, that was a long-winded answer of, it was not an overnight success for me. I had to do multiple different jobs to get to this job, but ultimately the opportunity presented itself by being reliable with some banks that I knew. All right. And that's the other big thing. I tell young people when they ask, oh, what, I want to be a fighter pilot, what do I got to do? My goodness gracious, like at first, let's slow down here. Like, I mean, have that dream. I love it. But, in anything you do in life, be reliable. That's number one. I tell my kids that all the time. Be reliable. That means show up on time. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. And leave after everyone else. Be the last one out the door. I know that sounds so cliche, but people don't do it.
Right.
They don't. It's like the craziest thing in the world. You're like, hey man, like show up on time and leave, be the last one to leave. You don't have to be the last one to leave, but like you're not leaving at noon. You know what I mean? If you're not, and so, and people just don't, they just, for some reason, don't do that for some reason. And then the last thing, and you get this, especially in your community, is be the subject matter expert in something. Okay. Be the go-to person in your workplace, in your community, that people have to go to because they need the answer to something, right? Whether it's plumbing, whether it's, changing tires, right? It's whatever it is, for be the subject matter expert. Top Gun, that's what they teach you there. You graduate and you become a subject, you get a lecture to give throughout the Navy and you become a subject matter expert in that area, right? So my lecture was direct attack weapons, which was JDAM, laser JDAM, anything that had a GPS kit attached to it, right? And so that became what I knew, and people would come to me and say, hey, man, would you tell me about the guidance kit for this and this? And I would have the answer for them most of the time, right? And if I didn't, I'd go find it for them. And I would know where to go get it. And so, but when people would come to me and say, hey, can you talk to me about, the AIM 120? I would say, well, that's not my subject matter. Go talk to, Scotty Golick down, one of my buddies, go talk to him. So, you know what I mean? Yep. But that's the same in the business world. Be a subject matter expert in something, right? And then people will go to you over and over again. And before you know, you're getting those promotions, right? Because you're showing up on time. They're like, hey, I got to go to Birdman because he knows this. And then, you're just reliable and you're a subject matter expert. And before you know it, you look back 5-6 years later and people are like, you got a team of people under you. And that's just how it worked for me. I had to learn that, relearn it, take those lessons that we learned in the warfighting community and put them to play in the business world. And so, with this relationship that I had in the bank, they had come to me and said, hey, we've got this dealership group that has come on some hard times. Could you help, just walk them through, maybe, just give them some expertise in your area. And so I was able to help them through it. And over time, the bank said, hey, look, we got an opportunity for you, man. Like, do you want to take it? You want to take this? And I was like, well, inside I was like, hell yeah, hell yes, but I had to be a business person, do my due diligence, make sure it worked for my family, and all those things that we have to do now, Birdman, where before it was like, send me wherever you want to go, man, I'm going. So it was, and that's how Vamos came about, really, was just being at the right place at the right time, being a subject matter expert in a field that the banks needed some help with. Because the other thing with the business world, and your listeners and anyone else is, it takes capital. It better than anyone, right? I mean, how many times you banged your head against the wall and you're just like, man, I'm worn down. I can't go raise another dollar, but you do it, right? Because you know that you're making something better at the end, but it's hard, and raising money is not easy. Right. Anyone that says it is lying to you. And it can wear on you. So, but and it's not even really but the business world requires capital, right? And so I didn't leave the Navy with a treasure trove of cash. Like, I didn't raid Saddam Hussein's palace and come back with all these gold bars, or anything, but anyway, you know what I mean? Like, there wasn't like they high-fived me on the way out. They're like, oh, by the way, here's your $1 million, go start a business. Right. Right. So, getting the capital to do something required, rather raising the capital in the private sector or getting bank capital to start a business. So that's it in Vamos. That's how Vamos came about. We're 2 months into this. Well, I guess 2 months to see April 1st. Was that 3 months into this deal? We got a store in Arlington. We're opening one up in Houston on Thursday. And we're going to run 2 stores for a while and see how that works. We're these are things you just don't even think of it. We had a customer come in the other day, and my brother came in and said, hey, this guy's trying to buy cars, an Army vet, can we offer a military discount? I was like, well, heck yeah, we can offer it. But, like, it sounds cliche to like, oh, do we offer? I hadn't thought about it because to to me, it was like, it's not something I advertise
Yeah.
because I never want to be the guy that's like, there's a lot of people that put, oh, we're pro military, and they're just taking
Yeah.
advantage of good-hearted people, right? And so we don't, I don't put that on. My point is like, look, I find out you're a military vet. You talk to one of my employees, talk to me, like you're going to get taken care of,
Yeah.
right? Because I do believe in that. And so,
Well, I can attest to this, and I'll definitely state this. So it's funny because I knew that I knew you were in the car business. I knew that your family was in the car business and that you had dabbled around in it growing up. And, we've been talking for a couple of years because I had a lease and was like, I got to get ready for a new car. And I started talking to you about Toyotas. And it was so funny how for years we would go back and forth or go see my family down in Houston. And I'm like, I never made it. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, what's going on these days? I got to get a car. And he's like, well, come on over, check out my shop. And I'm like, you didn't just go and buy a car. You went and got the dealership of your own, which I'm like, you have a dealership now? Okay, I'm on my way. And showed up. And again, goes back to what you were saying. Like, I didn't get bombarded when I showed up with people like, hey, come on, check us out. We got everything you need.
yeah.
It was awesome. As I walked in, got to see you, get to see your brother, and it was just to the point. Like, hey, what can we do? What do you need, man? And you worked with me, so it was so seamless and easy. It was so fast. I mean, what did we talk for 24 hours, and then all of a sudden I'm in there buying. I got a 4Runner, and I'm super stoked with it. And it was painless, it was seamless, and it was also special for me to actually be able to buy a car from
Yeah.
you. That was
Look, I
cool.
loved it. I loved it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just two people trying to help each other out in one way or the other, right?
Yeah.
And I say it, and as you have to look at it both ways, is sure, I'm helping you get in a car, but you're also helping my business, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a symbiotic relationship. It's never like, you know, oh, I'm just help, so that's, I always treat it that way, regardless of how it is. And look, we're just starting. It's going to be a long road. We know that there's going to be, speed bumps along the way. There already has been, but look, at the end, put your head down, do the right thing, to your customers and your employees, and it'll shake out in the end. So, yeah, I mean, that's it as a cliche aviator term from a 30,000 foot view, Birdman.
Yeah.
That's Vamos Auto, right? And we inherited the name. If anyone's wondering, it was the previous owners. It was Vamos Auto, and so no need to rebrand. And we've kept it there. The umbrella company, which has changed, but the name Vamos is still around. So, and then just a quick little trivia, not even trivia, but my grandfather I talked about earlier, Mort Hall, who was my mentor. So my first son, his name is Hall Mortimer. So flip flop the name. My wife was like, "There's no way we're naming our kid Mortimer, but I'll be willing to let you have the middle name. Like Mortimer's okay as a middle name." So his first name is Hall, Hall, and then middle name Mortimer. So that's my homage to my grandfather, who really, and as you know, as the book that you wrote a while back, family legacy is a pretty big deal, right? Especially for things that good and bad. But yeah, man, thanks for chit chatting with me.
2 questions to finalize on. Number one, there was a 24-hour period from the time that I actually said I want to buy the car to the time that I actually sat in it. Did you and your brother driving my future car butt naked?
The thought crossed my mind. But I figured you would sniff it out, if you know what I mean. So it did not happen.
Check. 2, and this one I ask every single person. So you clearly served your time in the military and you have a lot of experiences. And while this isn't a podcast to touch on that, I do ask this question. Send us a story right now. It could be a short story, it could be a long story, but a story of somebody who influenced you in your career. They could have given their life for this nation. They could have provided you with massive value as a mentor, or somebody who just gave you some quick advice that actually changed the trajectory of life. Let us know a story we've never heard before.
Yeah, well, my CAG, who's the Carrier Air Group Commander, Captain Ewald on my last deployment, is probably the finest human I ever served with. He was, so just to kind of give you some background, there's two O6s for the most part on a carrier. There's the O6 that's the captain of the carrier. So for all intents and purposes, that O6, is the captain of the ship. He runs, or she runs, the day-to-day operations of the boat, all the 5,000 people ish on the boat, how making sure the arresting wire works, all those type of things. So that boat, the carrier, will go out, without airplanes and on it all the time to do sea trials, right? And so when it's out, that O6 runs the ship, right? He's the captain, he or she is the captain of that carrier. The CAG is the O6 of the air group. So that O6 owns all the air assets. So when we fly on the ship, the CAG and the captain work together to make sure, hey, the flight ops are getting done, all those things. So they're really the two big dogs on the boat. They are, minus the admiral. And so our CAG, you look up to your CAG, right? I mean, your CAG is the one that's carrying the torch for the air wing, and the air wing is, 4 fighter squadrons, an E2 squadron, a helo squadron, a growler squadron. So it's a lot of air assets that the CAG owns, and he or she's the head honcho of the air group. And so CAG Waldo, call sign, F-14 guy, transitioned to Super Hornets, was a Rio backseater in the Tomcat, and then when he transitioned to the Super Hornets, became what they call a WISA, weapons system officer. Irregardless of the story, but just greatest dude I was ever around. And I remember, and I still can close my eyes and visualize this stuff, but you would brief for a combat mission, and look, it never gets routine. That. I mean, it may, people that are around you, like if you weren't watching, like if I came and watched you brief to go on a raid or whatever you were doing, like I might think, oh my gosh, like those guys have, nerves of steel. And it's not that you're not nervous. It's just like, look, man, you know what you got to do to get ready, right? And so deep down inside, you're still a little, like, man, this is going to be a tough mission, another 9-hour combat mission or whatever. I got to, there's just a lot that comes with it, right? And so he would always come in and say a couple things at the end. He would say, guys and girls, you're going to do great. That was number one. You were built for this, is what he would say, number two. And the last thing I'll never forget, he said, I got your back no matter what. Those three things. You're going to do great. You're made for this. And I got your back no matter what. What three simple things? Three. And those carried with me forever. I tell my employees that all the time. I tell myself that sometimes, I tell my kids that, which is the great, when someone tells you those things, man, dude, your self-esteem goes through the freaking, and your confidence level goes. So Captain Waldo, I still keep in touch with, he was changed my life forever just by three simple things that, he would leave us with, and so I think you would understand that. There was always, having your, head leader instill that confidence in you and let you know, no matter what happens, I got your back. Because, in the fog of war, man, there's nothing, you kick down those doors, you can't go, oh man, I wonder if I'm going to be on the news today. Like you just got to do same thing with, when we're talking to y'all airborne and you're like, hey man, like it's a tick, troops in contact, urban scenario. We're trying to figure out what building's what, man, like it can get hairy. And the last thing you want to know is, look, man, if something goes wrong, I want to make sure when I land back on that boat, those people aren't just going to run and say, you know what, oh man, Diesel, he screwed the pooch. He forgot to employ his weapons or do something. You know, you're going to have someone that has your back. That means a lot. And that makes your confidence go through the roof. So anyways, that's my story. Waldo, love you, man.
Heck, that was awesome, man. I rarely get stories about officers, so it's nice to have that switch up. Because most of the guys on here are enlisted guys, and we have a very interesting, tumultuous relationship with the O's. So, you know, but
Well, you know, I think the spec ops and the fighter pilot community, you know, they look at the end of the day, we need each other, right? And like I said, being 4 stars down to an E3 or E4, it doesn't matter, man. Like it's at the end of the day, you know, we're pulling from the same side of the rope. So
yeah, but it's jealousy. I mean, we look at you guys and your fighter jets, and we're like, yeah, we're super, super angry because we're jealous. I mean, it's the bottom line. Like, still waiting for my plane. So,
oh man, the best was when y'all would ask us to do a show of force and country, man. That was like a license to steal, man. That was like the greatest because you couldn't get away with that in the States, obviously, right? You're not going to fly over someone's house at, you know, 200 ish lower feet.
maybe that's why they didn't give us jets, because we probably would.
Well, you know, the old saying in aviation is you can only tie the record for lowest flight. So you learn that one real quick, you know. Come back and call it a day at some other time. But those are always the best when y'all called in the show forces or the show presence. That was always fun.
And we always thank you for showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, awesome, man. I'm super stoked to see what you're doing. I've, watched this. I mean, you've never been to a point where you were like going lower. I mean, I've watched your trajectory of getting out as you just maneuvered. You've, worked your
Yeah.
way from place to place, doing this the whole time, though, to get to where you are today. And it's been awesome to watch. So if you haven't already, go to the website, check out vamosauto.us. You need a car? You know where to get it. Vamos Auto. Check out Diesel, aka Travis Allison. Just a good American and a great human being. Appreciate you being on, brother.
All right, Birdman. Love you, man.
Well, that was cool, as always. I mean, Trav and I have been friends for years, but I've literally watched his trajectory. He's just been climbing the whole time. And it's super cool to see him with his own dealership now, actually, too. So if you're in need of a car, if you're a vet, first responder, and you're just getting out of the military or just somebody who wants to buy a car, go check out vamosauto.us. Trav's the man. He'll take good care of you. He's a good, honest guy. Not a typical car salesman. So you go check it out. Hopefully you've been checking in on yourself and looking at your health and wellness. And if you haven't done so yet, go check out transcendcompany.com. They're an amazing organization. I've been working with them for over 2 years. I love everything about working with them, to the people that work there, to the process, and to understanding my own physiology through my blood panels. So if you're ready to get started, go check out transcendcompany.com/Birdman. Start your health and wellness journey today. Also, my charities hot list. We got sonsoftheflag.org, birdseyeviewproject.org, guardiangrange.org, transcendfoundation.com, and navysealsfund.org. Go check out those causes, support them if you can. Give them a like and follow them because they're doing great stuff. If you're a history buff like me, go check out my book, Sons of the Flag, Real Accounts from the Last 100 Years of American Service. You can find it on Amazon. And also give us a like on Instagram at 7xproject.com. We're getting ready to release our documentary and our performance manual. So if you could give us a like and share that out, follow what we're doing. We got some pretty cool stuff coming up. As always, remember that we drop these episodes every Friday. So make sure if you haven't already on YouTube, go like it, go subscribe to it, click the notifications button so that you can get a text message letting you know that we got a new one dropping. So every Friday, the Frogman Friday show drops. So give us a follow, let your friends know so we can get these special ops veterans and these fighter pilots out to more people so people can support them. Thanks for your time. Love you guys.
Frogman